Hello, this is Derek Rougeau with Rougeau Knives, here to talk to you about how to take care of your knives. One thing to keep in mind is when you're working with these pieces, not to abuse them, not to use them for their unintended purposes. Each knife was designed specifically for its own purpose, and it's best to utilize each piece for that purpose. Some of the things not to do with these knives would be to use them as throwing knives. The knives are specifically designed for that purpose, so it's better just to go get a throwing knife. Also, some knives are designed to be used as chopping knives, for instance this one here, but then for instance these knives here are not meant for chopping, so I do not recommend it. Some light chopping, some woodworking or whittling, you can get away with that, but just be conscious not to get it too aggressive with them. Don't use them as pry bars, hacksaws, or anything like that. One thing not to do is use the tips as screwdrivers. That's a surefire way to just destroy the tip, and that's not good. Basically, just use common sense when using them. One more thing to keep in mind is that there's no such thing as indestructible steel. All these steels have a weak point. Some are stronger than the others. Some have stain-resisting properties. Adding a gun coat finish like this one helps with the rusting and the staining issues, but in the end they're gonna scratch, they're gonna wear over time. But also these knives are really tough. I mean, a lot of the knives that custom makers are making these days are pieces that will last a lifetime, and they will be pieces that you can pass down to your kids and your grandkids. Now regarding staining and rusting, this is 5160 carbon steel, and this will stain and rust as it's being used, especially as you cut organic materials like meat, potatoes, onions, stuff like that. The steel will begin to discolor. This piece here is stainless steel, so the chances of staining are practically nil. You're not going to see really any staining on these stainless steels. However, they will stain and they will rust if you don't take care of them, so keep them clean. The Damascus also will stain and rust, as you can see. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but it's starting to discolor and stain. I use this one quite a bit, so that will happen definitely. Then the gun coat finishes, they help on the carbon steels to eliminate the rusting and the staining as well, but they will scratch. Any of these surfaces are going to scratch if you're using them, and there's just no way around that. One thing you can do to eliminate staining is to get some 600 grit wet and dry sandpaper, and then you can go in and refinish it. You can use steel wool and just kind of sand off all the discoloration. Same with the Damascus. Just do it lightly and then clean them up, and that will help give you a cleaner finish once again. Now when it comes to natural wood handles and horn, you can just clean them with soap and water, just a little bit, just keep them clean. If they start drying out, use some furniture wax and or paste. Now if it's really dry and you're starting to see some cracking, then I would recommend something like this. It has a lot of oil in it, and it will rehydrate the wood. And then it also puts some wax on it to give it a nice clean finish. And then after that, if you want, you can also add some furniture paste, and that really just kind of seals it and locks it all in, and same with the horn. Now a lot of the knives I make, I use stabilized woods, which is what this is. And stabilized wood is a resin penetrated wood that is done under heat and pressure. So the resin is pushed into all the pores. And I started also doing my antler the same way. I had some antler just shrank like 1/1000th of an inch, and I wasn't happy with it, so I started stabilizing my antler. Now the synthetic handle materials are really low maintenance. I mean, there's really nothing you need to do with them. Just wash them off, keep them clean. They come in different grades or different kinds. This one here is G10, which is a fiberglass phenolic resin. They press multi-layers of fiberglass together under pressure and heat and then cure it. The same thing with micarta, same process, except they offer it in paper, linen, which is what this is, and then also canvas. Paper you can actually polish to a nice high shine. Linen, you can't really do that. I've just added some wax to this. You can add wax to it, like some furniture wax like this with some oil, or even just oil, and just help bring out the texture and the sheen of it. But you really don't need to do that. It's just for aesthetics. The linen's nice, but you can't get it to a real good shine. And then the canvas, forget it. You can't get it to a shine. But it's not really meant for that. Canvas, when it gets wet, will actually grip better in your hand. So for larger knives, I like to use it for that purpose because you're working heavier and harder with it, and you don't want it flying out of your hand. You want a good grip. This one here is carbon fiber. Now carbon fiber is really attractive. You get that holographic effect in the handle. It is a little pricey to buy the materials, and working it with it, it's you got to wear a respirator. It's dangerous, and also the little carbon fibers get into your skin and make you itchy. But also working with any of these materials, you need to wear a respirator. Even when you're grinding horn, that stuff gets in your lungs, and it's going to do damage. When cleaning your knife, just use a mild detergent. Wash the blade, the handle, everything with soap and water. Nothing. No, don't use any chemicals, no acetone or anything like that. Just wash it. One thing you do not want to do is put any of these knives in a dishwasher. When you put a knife in a dishwasher, what happens is any knife that has any epoxy in it or glues are going to come undone. Also, you're affecting the temper of the blade. So the more you wash a blade in the dishwasher and it gets heated and cooled, drawing the temper out of that blade. So eventually it's just going to stop holding an edge and it's not going to perform correctly. And this also includes your kitchen knives. You do not want to put these, we all have them, we don't want to put them in the dishwasher. We want to wash these by hand, make sure they're dry, and put them back into their storage block or in the drawer. In regards to rust prevention, you want to apply some sort of oil to the blade itself, and that could be anywhere from machine oil to WD-40, gun oil, other rust preventative lubricants. You can also use olive oil if you don't want to use petroleum products, and you can go as far as actually taking the oil from your skin and putting it on the blade if you're out in the field. One thing I don't recommend is using silicone spray. I haven't really tested this, but I had read that silicone spray actually traps moisture against the steel, and then it will begin to rust. So avoid any kind of silicone sprays on your blades. And this goes mainly for your carbon steels or Damascus, anything like that. The stainless steels, you really don't need to put oil on it, but if you're going to store it for an extended period of time, then I would recommend a really light coat of oil just to be safe. Now when it comes to storing your knives in your sheath, when it comes to Kydex, there's really not an issue. The knife, as long as you don't have any moisture in there, you can store it in there for a pretty long time. This knife here is 5160, so it's a carbon alloy, and it has a gun coat finish on it, so storing it in the sheath is not a problem. Very low maintenance. But on the other hand, this knife is 01 tool steel, and it has a raw finish, just a nice satin finish, and then the leather sheath. So if I'm going to store this knife in this leather sheath for an extended period of time, one thing I need to be aware of is make sure it's dry, and then also put a light coat of oil on it. But even then, if it's sitting in the sheath for 2 years or more, the acids in the sheath and the chemicals that they use to treat the leather will actually begin to etch the blade. So that is something to be aware of. So if you're going to store a really nice fancy knife for an extended period of time and it's going to be in contact with leather, then I recommend storing them separately. Now when it comes to the Kydex sheath, very little maintenance is needed. Basically just keep the dirt out, dry it. You know, if you need to wash it, you know, a little soap and water, no big deal. Don't use any solvents. Acetone will eat it up. Once again, don't put it in a dishwasher because it's going to heat it up and it's going to lose its form. Any kind of excessive heat will distort the Kydex. The threshold is once you start getting over 200 degrees, the Kydex will start to lose its form. So be aware of that. One thing you don't want to do is leave a Kydex sheath in your car in direct sunlight, say in the summer. If you want to store the knife in your car, you know, stick it under the seat, stick it in the glove box, put even a jacket over it, but don't leave it in direct sunlight. It will lose its form. But other than that, Kydex is a pretty cool material to work with, and it's durable, easy to clean, easy to maintain. Now with leather, whatever you do, you don't want to get it wet. You don't want to, especially if the leather is form-fitted. For instance, this knife here, there's a bit of a form fitting in this area here, so you don't want to get that wet. Otherwise, it's just going to lose its tension and it won't fit right anymore. Also, leather contracts and shrinks when it gets wet and dry, so you want to avoid that. Also, you can have a bunch of water in there trapped inside the sheath. Stick your knife in there, next time you pull it out, it's just rusted. That's not good. You want to keep it fed, you want to keep it hydrated. You don't want the leather to dry out. So there's different products you can go. Tandy Leather is a great place. You can talk to those guys about what to use. You need to buy an oil so that you can rehydrate the leather, and then after it's sat for a while and dried, then you can reseal it. There's also leather soap, so you can use leather soap to clean it and everything. So there's different ways to treat leather, but I recommend you just going out and taking a look at the different products, talk to some people, say at Tandy, and get their advice on your project and how you want to retreat your sheath. Just a quick note on sheath. Some of the drawbacks really on, say for instance, let's start with leather. Leather sheath is that the blade, if it's not made right and sturdy enough, the blade can actually puncture through the side of the sheath and stab you in the leg. That is a concern, but if the sheath is made correctly and the leather's thick enough and you wear it correctly, then that issue can be eliminated. On the Kydex, you're not going to have that problem. But one of the drawbacks that I've been finding with Kydex is if you have a blade that has a really nice clean finish, nice mirror finish, and you keep drawing it in and out of the sheath, as debris and particles collect within the sheath, it starts to scratch and you start getting some very significant scratches on your blade. But if it's a working knife, who cares? If you're using the knife, then so be it. But if it's a nice pretty piece that you really don't want to use and you just want to show it off, then you may want to consider just keeping the inside of the sheath very, very clean. Otherwise, you're going to start getting scratches on the blade. So next is sharpening your knife. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on how to sharpen knives. I'll probably do another video on that. But basically, the generals, what do you need to know? One thing I heard a guy saying, well, you never have to sharpen my knives. I heard that at a show. And that was a load of BS. Any knife, I don't care what kind of steel it is, it's going to need to be sharpened. And a sharp knife is a safe knife. And the reason for that is because you're not pushing through the material. You're cutting through it. So you always want to use a sharp knife. Some steels will hold an edge longer than others, so they don't need to be sharpened as often. Now, when your knife starts to dull, you'll be using your knife, you're cutting some materials, okay, and it starts to not cut as well, then I recommend going to something like this, which is a ceramic rod. And then all you want to do is just basically run it on there and just touch up the edge of it so that it gets back to a decent cutting performance. You can also use one of these. They mount on the side of a counter like that, and then you draw it through it. These are diamond penetrated steel rods. You can also get one of these in a steel. A lot of them come with a chef's knife set, so you can use that. And you see them, working it, and all they're doing is just kind of touching up the edge. Well, you can do that 5 or 6 times on a knife before you have to actually go to a stone. And stones are used when you're ready to put a really good edge on it, where you're starting to get some chips, maybe some nicks. You've used your steel or your ceramic rod, and it's now starting to lose that sharp edge. So you want to go in and reshape that. Carbon steel, carbon alloy, tool steels, you can use a whetstone. Put a little oil on there, and then you just work it and put a new edge on it. And then you come back on with a steel, and you kind of get the burrs off. A diamond stone is highly recommended, and if you have stainless steel knives, especially good ones, a lot of the makers, they use really good stainless steels, and they've been hardened to 60, right around 60 on the Rockwell scale. So whetstones will not sharpen them. I mean, you can do it, but you're going to be putting a lot of effort to it. Get yourself a diamond stone. This one here I got at Harbor Freight. It's a cheapie, but it works. And it's a 200, 300, 400, and 600 grit on either side, and it allows you to put a new edge on your stainless steel blades. This one here, great for out in the field for touch-ups. Has a coarse and a fine stone, so you can just real lightly just kind of touch up your edges if it starts to dull on you, and then it's compact so you can put it away in your pack or whatever. So these are kind of some of the products that you can use to sharpen your knives. Now this one here is they consider them chef knife sharpening, electric sharpeners, so chef knives, stuff like that. And I don't recommend these because they remove too much material from the edge, and also they do a hollow grind because there's 2 wheels in here, and they're a little larger than a quarter, and they're convex like this, so when you grind it, it makes a very thin but very sharp edge. And then what happens is as you use the knife, that edge wears out very quickly, so now you got to run it through it again, and it runs out again after you use it, and you keep going back and forth, and eventually your edge starts moving up. You just keep removing the material, and it also changes the edge geometry of the knife. Now regarding edge geometry, I design these knives each for a specific purpose. For instance, this one here is a flat grind, and it has a very tough edge, so it's kind of a hunting knife, but very strong. Now I specifically designed this cutting edge for this knife, and then you have other knives for chopping, more finer work, for sharper cutting. All of these have slightly different edge geometry, and by using one of these electric chef knives, sharpeners, they completely erase that. So I recommend staying away from them. So there you have it, how to take care of a custom knife. Now if you purchase one of my knives, if you're willing to pay for shipping, you can always send it to me and I'll sharpen it for you. And I'll clean it up and get a nice edge on it. So thank you very much for your feedback and comments on YouTube. I appreciate everybody looking at my videos, and thanks.